All right, in this video, let's take a look at the files that we have to start out with. Because this is a simple Node application, we have a file here called app.js. And this just sets up our simple Express application with a couple different endpoints. First, at the very top, we have our dependencies. We pull in the Express module. We start to set up our ports, so just defining some variables here. The very first route we have is a /token route, and really what this does is it generates a dummy payload and then signs that payload with a JSON web token and then sends that token back. So we're not doing any authentication, any real authorization. Anyone can hit this endpoint. Really, the whole point of this is just to be able to get a JSON web token. The only other endpoint we have here is /customers, and this is an example endpoint that we would call to get maybe a list of customers or something along those lines. Now, I do want to call your attention to this authorized middleware. So we are calling a piece of middleware here on this customers endpoint, and that's where we'll use the JSON web token to make sure that our user is authorized to view that information. And then finally at the bottom, we just set up our app to listen on the port that we pass in. So I think 8081 or 5000, whatever you want your port to be. So that's our app.js file. The next file we'll look at is the authorized middleware. So this handles authorization for a request. And what it does is it takes in the JSON web token and potentially some information that might be passed in from a route to determine if the user, one, has a valid JSON web token, right? So it hasn't been tampered with and it hasn't expired, and that they are authorized with certain claims for this particular route. So that information might be passed in here as a credentials, and really what we're doing is taking the token out of the headers, splitting up the header that's passed in, and then determining if the JSON web token is valid. Now, I have another video that goes far more in depth where we actually create this authorization middleware, talk through each one of the pieces, and some of the decisions I made around why we implemented authorization in this way. So I encourage you to take a look at that. But this authorization middleware is what we're going to be using to extend to not only accept a JSON web token passed in as a header, but also as our 2-cookie authorization model. So stay tuned. That's what we'll look at next.